my beautiful people? I am your fight goddess, Chris Baldwin, and I am in the house today. We are back in the war room with my boy, Mr. Eddie Goldman. We call him the conscious of combat sports, and we have a very special guest, Jackie Steele. What's up, my friend? How are you today? We're going to talk about all the beautiful, wonderful things that you're doing. So let me just give you a proper introduction. Jackie Steele is the co-founder of Clitorati. We recognize today a queer women-led brand. Jackie was the first bisexual appointed to the Gay and Lesbian Advisory Board. And during her tenure, she worked to change the board to expand representation for the LGBTQ community. Jackie was also instrumental in producing the first Bi Pride for the city of West Hollywood. You rock, girl. Jackie also serves as the Bi Mental Health Task Force, on the Bi Mental Health Task Force, and was on the West Hollywood Chamber of Commerce Small Business Foundation Board, where her work focused on increasing access and opportunity to underrepresented businesses and entrepreneurs. And she has served as a board member for Unique Women's Coalition, which is Southern California's first Black trans women led organization. And we love them. And was the chair of the leadership development at the Stonewall Democratic Club. Where we rock and roll over there. Jackie was also one of the organizers for the March for Kamala in West Hollywood. She recently served as the chair of the Los Angeles District Attorney's LGBTQ Advisory Board and is a member of the LASD LGBTQ Advisory Board and my consigliere at the L Project for all things Women's Freedom Festival and the iconic Dyke March at West Hollywood, at what WeHo Pride. So, Jackie Steele, my friend, my beautiful soul sister, I want to thank you to the War Room. Hot
Thank
damn.
you.
The first thing we're going to talk about is Clitorati, because you have such an extensive body of work in our community in terms of social justice, doing all those things, anti-racism work. I mean, everything that you could think of, top to bottom, to make life better for LGBTQ folks in Los Angeles. That's pretty much Los Angeles and across the nation. So what inspired you, and there's a group of you, Alana and Trish, and we could talk about them. What inspired the three of you to get together to create Clitorati? And what is Clitorati?
Yeah, so thanks. So Clitorati really is the forward-facing brand of our company, which is Queer Joy LLC. And we basically, a long way back now, I don't know, 6 months ago, a little while back, we basically had a text chain that I one day named Clitorati because I just thought every day we wake up and we tell each other, like, get up. You can do it, even if you don't think you can. And I actually don't care if you can do it or not. Just get up anyway. Whatever. Some form of empowering message. And I always thought it was so, fun and funny. And so I named the text chain Clitorati. And we all started referring to each other as the Clitorati, right? And basically at some point, I mentioned it to someone. Alana, one of the other co-founders, mentioned it. Trish had mentioned it to a few friends, even some of our gay men, and they were like, that has to be a t-shirt. Oh my God, where's the t-shirt? They just thought it was so fun. And we were like, maybe we should do a t-shirt.
Right.
We wanted to come together and put together a small women-run business that also helped empower other women and help build pipelines for other women for different forms of access and opportunity and business growth. And so we had that in mind. We wanted to do some cool things. We wanted to have some fun. We weren't sure where to start. We thought, well, t-shirts are a really achievable thing.
Right.
We could set a timeline too. We could slap a budget around. And we did. And that was the conversation started in February of last year. And we launched just in time for Pride last year and hit, I think, every Pride and,
Fantastic. You went on tour. You went on Pride tour, right?
we
So
did.
how's business going, and what messages are you, you know, using to uplift the community?
Yeah, I mean, all good questions in these hard modern times.
Yes.
Businesses, It's going well. We just, we met this week. We chatted about kind of the future of where we are right now and like where the future is for this brand. And I'm of the very strong feeling that it's needed now more than ever. That we need to figure out ways to bring people in, to call people in, call women to action, or just be like, girl, I see you and you exist and we get it.
Right.
And so really it's just, trying to find ways to do that, helping where we can with whatever, path our friends and their businesses are on. But we're growing our social media, we're growing our online sales presence. And that's been a whole learning curve. Learning the world of e-commerce is something. And that's what I've been spending time on behind the scenes. So when I'm not running my mouth somewhere or at a or whatever.
Right. Well, because you are also a comedian, right?
Yeah,
And you
sometimes.
have, right, sometimes, but you haven't done stand up in a while. So what's
No.
the plan for that? Is that something you think you'd
What's
want
the
to?
problem? Just ask the question, Chris. Um,
Exactly.
there comes a time where even as a comedian, you don't think just shit ain't funny. And you have to revisit yourself. And so for me, I only want to do things when I feel inspired. I don't
Right.
have a hustle or die mentality. I guess I do in the big picture because I'm always doing something, but I felt like I needed to get my voice a break. I felt like I needed to do some healing and all those kinds of things. I had some severe family loss in the last year, and I just thought I need to take a beat. This is not the time for me to be on a microphone, not the time for me to really be out
Right.
of the house at all. So, I couldn't put down the community stuff because there's just severe need and things like that. So I had to take a breath where I could, how I could, and that was one of the things I took a break from. And I feel great about it. I'm happy that I did it. Everybody was super supportive. The producers I work with, different show bookers, whatever, comics, just check in like, are you good? First of all, are you good?
Right.
You're never quiet. So are you okay? I'm never quiet politically. I'm never quiet community wise. And so people had concerns, rightfully. But I'm fine. And I have started writing again and,
Good.
just
Do you have other comedians that have inspired you or influenced you? I don't mean copy. That's the real
yeah,
old comedians used to do that,
yeah,
like Milton Berle and so forth. But
yeah.
others sort of in the genre that you are in.
Yeah, by the way, if you hadn't read Milton Berle's autobiography, it is a wild ride. Let me just tell you, it is something. That man was really something. His storyline was fantastic and incredible. And it's a fabulous, fabulous autobiography.
Wow.
I
Uh,
saw him live once. I'll
did you
tell you
really?
that another. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, you don't have to wait. That sounds brilliant.
I was a teenager at a summer camp, and he was way at the end of his career.
Wow.
And we went to this summer theater, and it was in Massachusetts. And the only thing I remember, it was sort of like a theater in the round thing, and he's just up there talking. I only remember one thing from it. While he was performing, some planes flew overhead the theater, and you could hear them. And he looked up and he said, "I hope they're ours," and that was it.
Right. Oh, what a
Which is
Pure
story.
ironic because I don't know if
improvisation.
you've heard those planes flying overhead here. So
There
I
you
will take
go.
that as a good sign. But yeah,
Oh,
plenty of
right.
comics inspired me. I think, just one that comes to mind now because of the political landscape. Um, Obviously George Carlin, well, not obviously, but George Carlin was a huge, huge influence for me. And just his voice, how he used his voice, how he spoke, how he brought people into a conversation. But also Richard Jenny. Richard Jenny, a huge, huge fan of Richard Jenny, and how he was able to bring people into a political conversation without really being identified as a political comedian. He really wasn't identified that way, self or other. But he did, and he really covered some ground. So I enjoy the both of their stylings.
Do you do political type commentary? I mean, I've seen your horror comedy stand up.
Yeah, I do a specific show. I was for a long time doing a show my friend Samantha Hale produces, and I helped her
Yeah.
do a little work on called Horror Nerd, which is all horror movie based comedy. And so that was different every show, every month, a different theme. And I love doing that. But yeah, the shows that I ran, like I created and produced a show called Triggered that we did. That was a podcast, but we also did live at the Improv. a show called The Other Show that still runs. Other producers have taken it on, but that still runs at the Improv. And then I also produced and ran and hosted a show at the Comedy Store for 2 years. So, yeah, I've done a lot of that. I'm me, so I'm going to talk.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about the shit I talk about, and I've definitely talked about a lot of LGBTQ issues and politics and all, but I would never identify myself as a political comedian.
Right, right.
The ones that I remember one time I saw Mort Saul live too,
Yep,
and
yep,
he's largely forgotten today,
dad.
but he was totally innovative for his
Yep,
time.
yep.
And you know who also, although he was a much more reserved, there's a lot of stuff in what Steve Allen did,
Oh yeah,
which is very useful and important. He even did a couple of shows on the history of comedy at that time. I think they were in the 60s, how it changed from the vaudeville
vaudeville
jokes,
days. Yeah,
two people walking a bar,
yeah,
I'm glad to be with you tonight, that kind of stuff,
yep, yep, yep,
to the more modern comedy of that time. And then the nastier comedy of Richard Pryor
yeah.
changed that.
Brilliant,
The, the
brilliant.
Richard the
Yeah,
Richard Pryor show. Did you see those four
yep,
episodes? And
yep.
probably one of the funniest shows. There were just so many funny shows. Today, I just can't watch these shows. It's just
They
awful.
suck.
Yeah.
Most of them
Yeah,
suck. Yeah.
yeah.
I
Most
see
of them
like I'll see
suck.
a thing on
Another one.
Netflix and it's
The
like the introduction is, I'm like, it's the least funny thing I've ever seen. If that's what, if you're giving me that as a taste to enter this space, I'm not entering this space. I'm sorry. I'm
the,
out.
the
Right.
funniest TV show that I ever saw, single episode, which is kind of hard to find now, was the Phil Silver show where he played Sergeant Bilko, called the
Wow.
called the Court Martial. Have you ever seen that one?
I know Phil Silver, but I've never seen the court
I
martial.
don't
So,
think I've seen
Yeah,
that
but I
it's
either.
will, I
not
will be,
on. Yeah, it's not online. It's not streamed. It might be on some obscure cable channel, and it's not really political, other than it pokes fun at the army bureaucracy.
yeah,
But you will. I've seen that numerous times. I know what's happening, and I still laugh out loud. And I rarely
yeah.
laugh out loud for anything. So if you
Those are the
could
good ones
find that, some of those old type of things, I think have relevance today
for
in
sure.
influencing 2025, 21st century humor, and can be borrowed without having to start with, hello, ladies and germs, or something like
All
that.
right.
Which, by the way, little kids who never heard that,
I know.
you start telling them, hello, ladies and germs. I used to tell that to my grandkids and other young people I know. It was hilarious. It's a hilarious line. It just
Yep.
got so old from people.
Or
I
take my
think
wife,
there's a
please.
history there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's fascinating. We love the old comedians because some of them got away with so much stuff. Like even the show like Archie Bunker when
Oh yeah.
oh my God, some of the jokes on there were just today. I mean, they were saying like the N-word on and stuff on there
Sure.
on
They
that
were.
show. I was shocked to see some of those old episodes, like with Sammy Davis Jr. when
Yep.
stuff was crazy. But look,
Yep.
let's talk
And in
about
the meantime, Shane Gillis just hosted SNL and he got fired from SNL for using that exact word. And now he was the
what?
host last week. So,
Get
full
out of
circle moments.
here.
Nope. Full circle moments. Not a fan.
It is crazy. That is just crazy. So let's jump into something a little more serious about the work you're doing for the LG on the LGBTQ Advisory Board. Talk to us a little bit about that and why
Yes.
you chose to take this position on that advisory board.
Yeah. So I'm not on the WeHo one currently. I was on that
The
body.
LA, right?
I'm on the LASD. So the Sheriff Luna of Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
Mhm. I'm on his body. And I was one of the people that really hounded him about having an LGBTQ advisory board because there are so many issues that face our community, that we need more community voice lending itself to this conversation. It's a brutal conversation. It's an endless conversation. There's a lot of layers to it. But I can stomach it. And so I basically was like, you really need this. You need to be listening to community in these ways. Because when he was running for office, when he was trying to get elected, because he had had some history, some other folks had had some history, but it was more about the structure, meaning like it's a structural issue, right? It's a systemic issue. And so how
Yes.
are you going to get anywhere with this? So anyway, so I did that, and then, I wasn't shocked, but he did appoint me to the, to the board. And yeah, it's important. There are so many things that affect our community. We got Sheriff Luna and I met with the city manager of West Hollywood and some other folks and Pride organizers, and we got the sheriff to commit to not executing RAMI warrants during Pride, which means somebody can't show up and say, I know that person has a warrant. They clock you, they call you in, and you're targeted, because what that means is, for a low level offense, you could be at what's supposed to be a safe space and be
Right.
targeted. We did actually have a community member targeted by a neo-Nazi in that way. It was a trans person. It led to a physical attack and then a takedown by police. And that's what sparked that particular sit down and conversation. But we were able to get some movement and to have that person's charges dropped by working with the current DA.
Right. So what kind of progress do you think you're making with Sheriff Luna's department? Oh, she started laughing.
Never enough, right? Never enough. There's a couple different things. Number one, I'll just say that body doesn't mean enough, and I've been very vocal about that, so nobody would be surprised to see that video clip floating around. But there is so much to do, from dealing with those real world timely incidents, sexual assault within the LGBTQ community and what that looks like, the wraparound services and care, to just cultural competency and training, right? And
Right.
nobody wants to hear you've been doing a job for 25 years and you need to go back and get some training. But the reality is they need some training.
Right.
And a lot of these officers and deputies, what we learn is that they go through one training when they start, right? And so imagine starting a job, being there for 25 years, and somebody told you week one, while you're still figuring out where the bathroom is and where your locker is and whatever else, how to talk to LGBTQ people, when the entire landscape of this community has changed. And if it's not, on the flip side of that, it's not someone's life lens. They're not bringing that knowledge to the table. It's not their life experience, right? So where do we come in and go? It would be easy for me to just say, educate yourself and walk away. Well, who's doing that? Who's
Yeah.
taking the time to do that? And quite frankly, it really is up to leaders to step up, those that have the stomach and capacity. And I totally respect folks that don't want to work in that space at all. I hear it. I get it. I will often, bring messages to the table for people that do not want to interface with these bodies. Totally respect it. But someone's got to get in there and go, this is what we need to do, and this is how we do it. And so I'm not an educator, but I encourage them to rework the entire training process. And then we're working on the LGBTQ updated training.
That's amazing. How can the community support you in your efforts with Sheriff Luna? What can we come to? Are the meetings open to the public?
Those meetings are not, it's not a Brown Act body.
Okay.
And there's reasons I prefer Brown Act bodies and reasons I don't prefer a Brown Act body. For those who don't know, a Brown Act body it means that that body is subject to public viewing, discourse, et cetera, right? That means the public has a right to view the meeting. The public has a right to engage with that meeting. It's their civil right to provide comment and commentary on issues that are being discussed on the agenda and things like that. And then votes have to happen in a certain way. This particular body, and there's all kinds of different bodies, and many of them operate different ways. It's not like this one's under the whatever. Plenty of them are Brown Act or not Brown Act. But because it functions that way, you can work through a work plan a little bit quicker. You're working in an advisory capacity, right? So you're not moving certain things. Anything that gets moved has to then go to larger bodies for discussion. We can have small discussions about executing certain types of warrants, but when it comes to big discussions, that has to involve, council people and boards of supervisor
Right.
people and that kind of stuff. So, but in terms of the general work, there is a civilian oversight commission that meets and reviews all of LAPD and LASD operations. I highly advise people to get involved and look at that. Their director just stepped down. There's a little bit of drama around it. But I would say too, not poor performance drama, but like what happens to people that are really vocal doing this work, doing anti-racism, holding policing structures accountable. And so quite frankly, it's fascinating to watch. And They do a lot of work with victims' rights groups, victims advocacy, victims' families that will come in and speak about their experiences. If records are trying to be covered up and not released, body cam footage, this is where a lot of these things are unpacked and discussed, and the public has an opportunity. I cannot say how valuable those meetings are. It's a civilian oversight commission. I always have it on my calendar. I always try to watch it or watch it, but that's a really important one because that is the entire, they overarchingly look at the infrastructure.
And is that the group that took a look at the drugging of folks in the bars?
That's a different group, and I did work on that with a group of people. That was the drink spiking sexual assault
Yeah.
and crimes. That was when I was a public safety commissioner for West Hollywood. But we also worked with like the Women's Advisory Board and other folks in the city. But we basically put drink spiking test strips in all of the bars in West Hollywood. And the role that I had in that was twofold. One, I reached out because I've got a long marketing and event background, and so I've done a lot of brand strategy and brand messaging. And so I reached out to the city and said, well, what's the delivery method? How are you delivering this information? Who's delivering the information to the bars? How are we educating the bartenders and the bar staff? Because if you don't have that, it's just something dusty in a corner. No one's, what's the difference?
Right.
People have skipped it. And so I worked with them, and then I put together a messaging plan and suggested that they meet with all of the folks that were distributing. And we did have a kickoff meeting, went through the talking points. I said, show everybody, open one up, walk through the process in person so that they're comfortable going into a bar space and speaking to staff. Because if you don't show the staff, it's just a thing in a packet in a corner. It might look like a condom. It's not.
Yeah. Right.
So it's really important that that's how you take things from being performance-based versus performative, right? It's performative to just put something there and go, we did it. It's performance-based to go, we've stopped, we've educated ourselves, we've educated
Right.
space, we've followed up on it. What are the pitfalls? How can we do it better? That's the work, right? And it's a journey.
Right. So is anybody measuring the success of those strips?
Right now they have, I don't think there's an ROI, like a measurement for use of the strips or prevention. I'm no longer on the Public Safety Commission, so unfortunately that piece of it I don't personally measure because that was one of the things that I thought was really important. But what I do know is that they've got a third party now who goes out, distributes, replenishes, does all of the educating. So I don't know, but I will get you that answer. I'm not clear, but I have not seen any metric presented in terms of prevention in the city. And I'd have to look for you like year over year what the numbers were to see if we could even try to make a story about, what potential prevention might look like.
Right. That is, well, fantastic work, first of all. That is amazing because, when we talk about getting shit done, you are one of my GSD go-tos. If you want to get some shit done, you got to have folks that know how to get some shit done, and you are definitely one of those people, my friend.
Thank you.
So what's coming up on the horizon for you? Is there anything you want to share with the community, especially now that we're trying to be, there's an administration trying to erase us. And I feel like with Clitorati, if you create these dope ass shirts, that's like Angela Davis says, we have to create infinite hope for people. I don't
Yeah.
want to wallow in, oh, I'm mad at Trump, I'm mad
Yeah.
at Elon. I want to see some people getting some shit done. And that's what,
Yeah.
I'm all about. So tell us what you guys have planned.
Yeah, I think, I guess what I would say just for community to get involved and how people can get involved, obviously support small business, women-owned business, queer-owned
Right.
business, support local, shop local where you can. Um, those are like the touch points that you can do in everyday life. But I think we have to start looking at like tangible ways to make meaningful change. And the problem is I think we get distracted or disappointed in the idea that meaningful change has to be this when it really could be this. Buying a shirt from a local small business is a big deal, whatever that product might be, right? And there's plenty of amazing Black-owned brands, all different types of brands that you can look at and you can look up online. There's resources and hubs that I can share, and if you want to follow up and post any, but to find these, right? You can also look up, there's lists of companies, corporations, and brands that have supported Project 2025. So you get to decide where you spend your dollar, where you don't spend your dollar. If you're doing any sort of work, just try to think about what you could do that's performance-based versus performative-based. Is this an immediate good feel? Does it have long-term effect? And again, by long-term effect, I don't mean sweeping change. I mean, Does this move the needle? Is this something that creates, is it a substantive effort? Is it um, something that will help, something that we can get people engaged on? And it doesn't matter to me if you have an hour to donate, if you've got $1 to donate, if you've got, you can only share something on social media. All of it has value. And I think we
Mm-hmm.
get distracted or disappointed by thinking that we've got to make big change and we don't know how. You can make effective change. And I think we also get, confused or disappointed by the idea that like we don't have enough to give, but an hour is a hell of a lot. Your time is worth so much. A dollar is worth a lot. You worked hard for it, right? Especially in these hard
Mm-hmm.
modern times.
Exactly.
And then, with social media, you share it and you're taking your time to share from your voice to your people a different message, a brand, whatever it is, it really does matter. And I think stepping back from the mayhem, finding those ways every day to do something that feels like something that's about something versus just complain and then complain, go off, do you, but find a way to do that. And then when it comes to the rest of it, just show up. It's literally more than half. I'd say it's more than half the battle. I think it's
Right.
98% of the battle is getting people to show up for something, show up to a meeting, just listen. It's okay if you don't understand what it is. You'll get it. You're smart. You're all smart. You'll grasp things, right? Like everything is terrifying when it's something we don't understand. You go to a meeting once, you kind of get the lay of the land, you see how it operates, how you might fit in, how you can participate. And there's always a space for you, right? Like it matters. So don't feel like you don't fit in. Don't feel like you shouldn't go to something or you don't know how it works because you're smart. You'll figure it out. And if not, you'll pull someone aside who looks like
Right.
they ask them how to do the thing.
Right.
But
Exactly. Right. So,
It's really important what you said, that people find a way to contribute in whatever way they can. A lot of us are limited for one reason or another in terms of what we can do, but working all together becomes like a team, even if it's unofficially organized,
yeah,
where people working on different levels.
yeah,
So that's something really important. People might not People might say, well, I'm not the best organizer. I can't organize 1,000 people to do something, or raise a ton of money or whatever.
right,
It's okay.
right.
Do what you can. The
yeah.
more people who do what they can, the better off it's going to be, and it builds up a critical mass.
Yeah. And we're designed to feel like it's all on our shoulders, right? And I think it's individualism and the stress of not knowing. There's an embarrassment. And I always say it happens at the school level, right? It's like, how important is it to go to school? How important is it to get an education? How important is it to ask questions?
Yep.
But if you think about the structure of a classroom, a lot of times, if you raise your hand and get something wrong, you're shamed by everyone in the room, including the teacher. And I really detest that particular structure. I think great teachers get it right and they know how to like allow that questions and you know support. But I do think there's something ingrained in us where we're just afraid to like look like we don't know or we don't want to get something wrong. We're going to get a lot wrong. We have to get things wrong to get them right. And there's a lot we don't know. We have to admit we don't know. So we have an opportunity to learn. And it's okay. If you don't know how to organize, you got a bossy coworker. You know she's bossy. You know she's always organizing a potluck you don't want to go to. Call her. Let her do it. You must know someone, right? Or just do this piece of it. I think so. What you're saying is, I agree. And I think find the way to do the thing. But oppression is designed to make you feel lesser than, to give you access to less, and to make you feel like you have access to less. But you can take that back. You can take access to things. You can show up in spaces. It's not up to someone else to tell you you don't belong or you're not worthy. You show up and you take your space. You figure out how you want to do that for you. And don't let someone tell you your worth. And I know that's hard. It's easier said. It takes a
Mm-hmm.
lot of work to get there, but people want to tell you you've only ever had this kind of a job, so you don't know. Sure, you do. You give me any kind of job someone's working, I'll pull the 5 top skill sets out of that job. Okay. That person can use to go for any other job that they would like to try to shift their career in. And I've done that in development in a lot of ways because it's really important. I did a hiring. Do I have time to tell a 2-second story, Chris, or
You
is it?
can tell, yeah, as
Okay.
much time as you need.
When I was working in an agency in West Hollywood, we had an opportunity. We were working with a video game. We were doing a Call of Duty launch at
My
the Forum,
favorite game.
and it was at the Forum, and we had to hire like at least 300 people. And so I went into the owners of the agency and I said, look, because I ran all of the hiring and the market for all of the event people, the staff, the actors, the special effects team, hair and makeup and wardrobe, blah, blah, blah. And I went to them and I said, look, we have an opportunity. We can outsource this to one agency or several agencies, and they can bring in people that do this work and pay them 25, 30 or more an hour. Or, and this is what I would like to do, and I'm proposing, we can bring work to the local economy, hire people from the local community, maybe develop some people in a field they've never worked in or didn't know was a field or whatever the case may be, and actually provide more resource and more actual revenue to individuals that live in that area, rather than bringing something in, doing the thing, and then leaving with your coin. It's like, well, wait a second. Jan Perry is a former council member for the city of Los Angeles. I think she was like for 10 years or something. She also ran the economic workforce and development department. And I had known her, and I reached out and I said, hey, I want to do this thing. And she said, I love it. And I met with her full team and we put it together, and we went in and we hired at least 65% of the people, if not more, from that local area.
Nice.
And I would run into people. There was a guy downtown on the street. He's like, Jackie. And I said, hey. And he said, I remember you. And and people during that interview process, because I insisted on doing the interviews myself in the round at the forum. Like we had rounds of interviews, and a lot of people came in, and I really wanted to talk to people and get to connect with people and get to know them. And I remember there were people that were like, a little embarrassed because I was, throw out some of your experience, let's just talk about some different things. And I could tell there was some hesitation in the room. And I, kind of found a way to get it out of some folks. And they, basically one person was like, oh, I've only ever worked at McDonald's. And I was like, I'm going to stop you right there. The positioning of I only ever worked is because someone told you that you've only ever worked. Am I right? And they were like, yeah. And their head was down and they said, yeah. And I said, of course they did. Let's rephrase this entire thing. That tells me you got a lot of patience with the public. That tells me you can pick
right.
up time.
You can multitask.
You can
right.
multitask.
Right.
There's a lot of heavy skill sets that come with that. So I understand that we're living in a world where it's designed for people to tell you what you've only done, so they can only hire you for this much money, so they can only give you this job while they live off the fat of the land. That's not right. It's not the way.
Part.
And we have to provide pipelines of access and opportunity. That goes back to being performance-based. It's one thing to say, support a Black brand, but never do that, right? Performative. It's one thing to say, hire Black community members, queer community members, etc., but then you never do that, right?
Right.
You really have to use, in whatever space you're in, the privilege that you have to help foster or create, if needed, the pipeline of access and opportunity for networking for jobs and hiring processes,
Yes.
or whatever it is. So anyway.
That's, when you talk about performative stuff, that's exactly what I think of whenever I hear meetings opened up with a land acknowledgement statement. To me, it is like, how about the L Project, we created a land accountability statement. Like, don't just say stuff that we acknowledge. You want to tell the whole story. So I'd love to see cities like West Hollywood who say that every meeting.
Yeah.
How about taking some of the parking meter money and donating it to the indigenous folks? Create a scholarship from that parking meter, since we are on their land. Right. So that to me is like, I'd love to see, see folks do stuff like that. But yeah.
I just had a conversation earlier about, and I've had a couple of these recently, about, I got one of the prides. It wasn't a local pride. It's another pride in another state that I'm connected to. I got a e-newsletter or whatever from them. And it was basically this big statement, big 7-page, bold colored and fonted statement about how they are against what's happening currently. They are against all the DEI rollbacks and all of this support. They support the Black community and the Black queer community. It's all of the things, right? They support women. They support all that. And I'm reading and I'm waiting and I'm reading and I'm waiting and I'm reading, and I get to the bottom and I'm like, but you know what I didn't see? What I didn't see was a statement and a commitment that they won't take a single sponsor dollar from a corporation that funded Project 2025.
Right.
What I didn't see was anything about how they're going to redirect their coin There's a lot of sponsor money to be made. It is hard, but when you're operating at those levels, there is a lot of money out there.
Yes.
And you can get money from different sources, from different places, or are we going to just keep doing this all the same and then still wondering how we got here in another 4 to 8 years?
Right. I've had such issues with our Pride producers taking corporate sponsorship dollars from people who are literally paying,
Anti?
contributing to GOP. I mean, the
Yep.
Women's Freedom Festival, we've had opportunities, and I sat with the Molson Coors people, and I straight up, and they sent women to the call. So I right away asked, like, okay, thank you for your offer, but does your company donate to anti-women organizations? And the woman said, transparency, full transparency. Yes, we do.
Right.
And that just is like, oh my goodness, this is just
Right.
awful. So yeah.
But the mass majority would have been like, okay, thank you for your honesty and you're women, so that makes everything okay, and we're going to take that money because
Yeah.
we need money.
No,
And I remember
we
sitting with a
rejected it. Yeah, we
yeah,
rejected
and
it.
but that's the move, right? Like, and it's hard because you work harder than anyone at this exact thing. You're producing a festival, you're putting this all together, you're trying to create space that's a meaningful space, but you can't sell your soul to do it. You can't.
I
If you
cannot.
sell out everything you are and believe in,
Yep.
what are we doing it for?
Yep.
How can you possibly create a safe space that is funded by harmful dollars?
Hmm.
It, the math doesn't math. And I'm not attacking one organizer over another.
Right, exactly.
I
Because
like
they
a
all do it. All of them do it.
right. But the point is, but it is, and it's and the other the part I was talking about was on the East Coast.
Yeah.
But the point is, I'd like to see a collective movement. So it's not a
Yeah.
call out, it's a call in. These are the types of conversations, but these are the types of things where when you speak out in certain spaces, then you're like, oh, it's crazy loud, Jackie. Oh, it's Jackie. Somebody, oh, she's always going off. I'm like, this doesn't sound like going off to me. This sounds like addressing an issue that affects our community. But if that's how you receive it, that's how you receive it. But we're not going to move forward. We can't move forward until we have some reckoning across the
Right.
board.
I agree. I agree with that. So yeah, I'd love to see our community embrace the anti, no taking sponsored dollars from these anti, the homophobes,
Right. And
right?
the reality is, like I said, look, we understand budgets, we understand sponsor relationships and sponsor dollars. I've done that
Right.
for many, many years, as you know. The reality is there's ways to navigate it. And so the power, because what I find is an instant shutdown from like, certain electeds or this or that, or like, well, they need to, well, then who pays for it? Well, you do. We get our other entities to pay for it. We turn it back to a nonprofit. We turn it back to an actual grassroots event. We actually make it about the community and not about the problem with
Right.
these organizations too is you end up there's millions of dollars flowing around. The money goes to a very select few. It's the very same thing, right? The same people who would point a finger at Musk are more than happy to work in a way where a very select top few that all look the same and all have the same, right?
Mhm.
They're making the real money. And then you're hiring, for the most part, straight white artists to headline and get the top billing. Well, you can say we've got a diverse lineup. Yes, but let me quickly look at your poster. Let me quickly look at the size of the font. Let me
Right.
quickly take a look at those contracts and then find out without any shock at all that of
Right.
course we know who made the most money. We
Right.
know who benefited. And I don't know why our mindset is so warped, only LGBTQ, I'm speaking largely for our community, is accepting.
Yeah.
We just accept it. And
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of more reckoning we need than what we're going through right now, but
Yeah. Well, we're gonna maintain our policy of not accepting those dollars. So at least one of us is doing it.
same. And
Right.
look, I think I get it, but I also think like, again, like I said, shutting something down because we're trying to make it a yes or no question versus like, for example, oh, well, what if I had to talk with somebody last night about this topic and they worked on pride committees and producing pride and those teams, a couple different ones. And they were like, well, yeah, but like, so what happens if you have a multi-year deal with, Target or somebody? And I said, great question. That's a great question. And here's what I would think is the answer. you now have the power as a stakeholder. They have come to you to say they believe in this enough to spend money and they want this visibility. You've got a contract. They're in a very bad position. What does it look like when you go to the local store, have a local conversation, bring them into it, make demands? There's things you can do. There's things you can do. I don't have them fully. I'm just saying, like,
Right.
there's power in not just saying we can't because of X. Well, we have this. So now what do we do? Now, how do we talk to these brands? Because at the end of the day, there will likely be another administration at some point, unless they tear it all down, which they're trying to. There will likely be something in the future. And so now what? These brands are going to have to walk it on back. How do they do it? What's it going to take? I
Right.
don't care if you do something now, if we are where we are in a contract, what can you do to build them and get that handshake under the table that in XYZ years, they go so far back in it. They reverse their commitments and they make stronger commitments and they make 20-year in ink guarantees, whatever it
Wow.
is. I'm just tossing it out. I don't have
Right.
just saying there's always a way, but I find us limited in our asks and what we think is our reach.
Right. No, that's I like that mentality that, yeah, they're bowing down and kissing the ring right now.
Just still gross.
Yeah, which is still gross. And maybe they will come around, but I want to mess with companies that, stuck up for us from Jump Street. Like,
100%.
yeah,
100%.
I like to see that kind of spine in,
Right.
with companies. So
Right.
here
If
we
I
are,
could
but
say it would be all freedom for community and
yeah,
all of those sponsors would be the ones able to give us dollars. But
right,
there's a lot of
right.
people in that mix and we've gotten very accustomed to that level of privilege and access to money.
That part. Shit. So look, so where can people find
You know
you?
me, I'm going to say
Tell folks where they can find you, what you're doing, where and how they can hit you up, and if they are you taking gigs for hosting, emceeing? No, none of that
I'm
yet.
taking hosting and emceeing gigs. Yeah. That I've like, and I'll be performing again soon. I've been writing, so
All
it'll
right,
happen. Feeling ironically more motivated than I have in a long time, which is exciting.
that's
And
good.
so didn't see that on the 2025 bingo card of this, landscape, but this post-apocalyptic hellscape we're living in.
Right.
But I pulled all my social medias down at the same time as I, I went off the grid to just gather. But you can find Clitorati on Instagram at Clitorati Life.
Is
And so
that Lyfe or Life?
Life,
Okay.
Clitorati Life. And
Hmm.
yeah, and they can DM and I run, I check those accounts and things like that. So you can reach out to me there and I'm happy to also answer if anyone has questions about how they can get involved in the community or
Yes,
locally or activate or anything. I'm always happy to answer those questions. So
Are you
absolutely.
on Blue Sky?
No,
not yet, but when I get back on it, I'll be on the blue sky. Yeah,
we got to get her on there. We
I
got
know
to
I'm
get
not on
you.
anything right now, which is
Exactly. Right. Well, look, I am recruiting for the NAACP LGBTQ committee. So if you know anybody that wants to get involved with
oh,
that, yeah,
okay.
send them my way. And that
I
goes for
love
you
it.
guys out there in the audience too. Okay. Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, Hollywood chapter.
Thank you.
So, all right. Well, look, it was a pleasure, as always, talking to you, my friend. I always learn something new and you are an inspiration. I want to make sure that you are acknowledged for the incredible work that you've done over since I've known you. It's been a few years, but it seems like I've known you my whole life. Um, but yeah, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for all that you've done for the L Project, for me, for the entire community, and helping us stay on point and stay focused, and you know, keeping our heads, our eyes on the prize, should we
Eyes on
say?
the prize,
Right,
baby.
eyes on the prize. We got to look out for one another. We got to continue to build the community we want to see.
Yep.
Right. And that is why I got involved because I wasn't seeing anything. I need to create some
Yep.
stuff that I want to see in the community.
Yep.
So if that's your game, everybody needs to get out there and create what you want to see in the community.
Yep.
And so with that, Eddie, my brother, you want to tell the people where they can find you?
Yeah, I am on Blue Sky, NHB News. I'm still on Shitter because
Oh my
a lot of
Lord.
people, a lot of people are still on that.
Yeah.
I mean, Zelensky is still on that and posts on there. There's all kinds of people from around the world that unfortunately haven't left that Nazi propaganda site.
Yep. Yep.
So I really minimized what posting I have on there, but it's also a place where there's a lot of information still at this point, as all of these social networks, as Zuckerberg's
Yeah.
social networks are like that too. Another guy who is a MAGA fascist.
Right.
So, uh, you know, you got to do what you got to do.
Yep.
But the main posting I'm doing is on Blue Sky. Still doing the Patreon, the No Holds Barred on Patreon. Just posted another article there, mostly about boxing, combat sports. Pay attention to what's happening with the International Olympic Committee
Yeah.
because they are having an election on the 20th for their next president, the 10th president of the IOC.
Oh
Okay.
wow.
And it looks like they're going to be taking a hard right turn.
Mm,
All the candidates that are running have been basically either directly running on an anti-trans platform or saying nothing about it. It's like they're running against Olympic gold medalist boxers Iman Khalif and Lin Yu Ting, like rather than the other opponents they have, and
Yeah.
using them as big scapegoats. So it's a lot of stuff happening in the Olympic movement that they're taking positions that are far worse than anything that the IOC has done in the last 25 years. And it looks like a lot of them are poised to restore this idiotic, unscientific, anachronistic so-called sex testing, which doesn't test for sex or gender, which scientists for decades said this is nonsense. It proves nothing. This is what they want to bring back in this whole anti-science climate that we have, not just with Musk and RFK Jr., but that's growing around the world. So pay attention to all that because that's coming up pretty soon. And I've been covering that for a long time and made my position pretty clear, defending boxes like Iman Khalif and Lin Yuting and others. Those are the most prominent because they both won gold medals at the Paris Olympics. And you could look at my blog, eddiegoldman.com, which has a lot of information about my media work, how to contact me, and all of that kind of stuff. And I am still in, which if you can't tell from the way I speak, New York City.
We can.
New
Still,
York, New
st-
York.
that's right.
We
So
That's
love
nice
it.
right.
they named it twice.
That's
We love
right.
it. We love it. Well, nice to meet you, Eddie. Thank you so much. And thank you, Chris, for having me. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for doing this. We appreciate you. I'm sure I'll see you very, very soon.
You will see me very, very soon. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to this edition of the WAAR Room. I am your fight goddess, and you can still find me on Blue Sky because I'm not ever going back on the shitter with the Needle Dick Nazis platform, on that Needle Dick Nazis platform. No fucking way. And I'm about to cancel IG and FB, but they kind of have us trapped because
Yep.
your business pages are connected to it. So it's like, oh, that's how they get us. I need a
Yep.
IG, a blue sky version of IG, and
It's coming. They're
yeah,
working on
it's coming. I hope so. I hope so. Until
it.
then, you guys, we will see you next time. Peace, love, and